Let me know when I can start. Namaskarams to all. Let me first thank the Ranjani Memorial Trust for giving me this opportunity to even talk a few words about my grandfather. More than saying that he's my grandfather, he's not just restricted to any one person or one family. He belongs to the music world. So I'm just fortunate enough to be born in this family, and even more fortunate to be a witness to people who have been extremely close to him, both family-wise, as friends, and people who have been very close to him as musician, and get to know first-hand information of their interaction with Mani Iyer. And it's indeed very fortunate and blessed to be passing on whatever little I heard from those people and pass it on through these forums. Thank you so much. And honestly speaking, it is extremely hard to just summarize his wise sayings in probably just say like a couple of hours or something like that, because he has lived an entire life, a very successful life for several decades to say the least, and passing on few of his views and concatenating it like within 2 hours or 1 hour is not an easy task. So what I've done is I've tried to concatenate and present it in like 3 or 4 buckets. And the overall theme is basically Palghat Mani Iyer's views on handling a concert from the perspective of a vocalist, violinist, Mridangam and Upapakavadyam. So that's how I've categorized the entire speech today. So from whatever I've heard from my father, Sri Palghat Rajaram, not even once after a concert has Mani Iyer spoken about his playing in a concert. It's always been about the concert per se. It has always been about how the vocalist interacted with the violinist, how the violinist interacted with the mridangist, and how the synergies were on stage. So that's always been the constant theme, and it's never been about his playing at all, not even once. So I've asked my father if he has asked my grandmother of whether personally, if Mani Iyer had spoken anything about something special about his own playing. Because I mean, it's pretty understandable if a husband talks to his wife and says that, you know what, I mean, in some way I'm special. Why don't you come to my concert? Why don't you listen to this specific thing? So it seems that it's never happened. So I'm just thinking, for a person who has been successfully at the top for 60 or more years, for not even having spoken about his own playing to his wife, it just says a lot about how he was thinking about conceptualizing the music per se and not just his playing. And his views were always about how to successfully handle a concert, in the sense that there is a takeaway for musicians as well as the rasikas. So he has never seen this in silos, and he has never considered an artist successful if they catered only to one side. So I mean, in Carnatic music, as in any other field, you have artists who appeal more to the public than being accepted by co-artists as extremely significant players in the field. And you have the opposite, and you have artists who have been hailed as greats by co-artists, but probably they were not very successful among the rasikas. So his view was that if you take music to the concert platform, then it is you are just duty bound to satisfy both to some degree. In that regard, his conceptualization of music was paramount than any individual brilliance. So he always considered a concert successful if all the players on stage got together and made music than just one or two players just carrying the show. That to him was not success of a concert at all. And interestingly, talking about this a few years back, revered Sri Seshagopalan sir. So he was talking about the past artists, and he was saying how artists, be it like Mani Iyer or be it Paini Subramaniya Pillai or Muruga Bhupati or even Raghu sir, Shivaraman sir, those days where you had just one mic, right, in front of a concert, in front of the vocalist in a concert. And these days Mridangas have like two mics for the Valantalai and Tuppi. Those days they didn't even have a mic. And the vocalist came with a range of voices. You had someone at one end of the spectrum like Chembe Vaidyanatha Bhagavathar, who can just, people, he could easily address a gathering of like some 3,000, 2,500 people without a mic. And the person at the last row could hear him as clearly as the person at the first row. So he had that kind of a voice. And you had a very soft and deft voice from a person like Palghat Mani Iyer. So, to all these, the entire spectrum of artists, if you could just place them in order of their vocal prowess in terms of producing the sound, I'm saying, each and every mridangist adapted. And if you listen to the concerts, every mridangam and every violin seems to be perfectly in balance. So it just goes to say that it has nothing to do with the microphone system or the amplification system. It's just a question of how each and every artist on stage internalize the music per se and then produce the kind of music which will gel overall and create great music on stage. So that is a kind of sensitivity in which, with which the past masters operated, be it like a Rajamanikam Pillai in violin. So his violin sound, as we all know, or as we all heard to have known, produces like a very, very, very tiny but an extremely sweet sound. But still, he has accompanied artists like Chembe, who will be singing in a concert of like 3,000, 4,000 people. But still, the violin will be heard. So that shows the kind of adaptability those artists had. So this is just a round of the opener from this entire talk, that the entire objective of Mani Iyer, as like perhaps any other artist of those years, was to ensure that the concert came out well and the music that was produced by all of them together came out well, more than his own playing or the vocalist prowess or the prowess of the violinist or the upapakavadyam. So this is the overall idea. And so I'm just going to segregate it into 4 pieces, as I said before: vocal, violin, mridangam and upapakavadyam. And feel free to ask questions in between. So if there's a relevant place, probably I'll be able to pick that up and answer those questions. So let me start off with his views on vocalists. So as far as there are 2 parts, the kalpitam and the kalpane. Kalpitam is what is set, typically the meters, the songs. And the kalpane is basically the improvisation. So as far as songs are concerned, he was very particular about sticking to the patantaram. So on several occasions, he used to correct when KVN Mama was doing Gurukula with Ramanjangar and partially with Manitata as well. And after Ramanjangar had passed away, on various songs, I have heard from KVN Mama himself. So he used to say that Mani Mama used to say, this is not how. Yeah. Alright. So, as I was talking about the patantaram, so KVN Mama himself has told, like when he sings certain songs, if I remember right, it was a very, very popular song, something like Ninne Naranaminarora or Aparama Bhakti, something in Panturali or Purvikalani, I don't remember that very vividly, but he said, when he sang a Sangati, he said, this is not how Ramanjangar sang. So stick to the patantaram. And as we all know, almost, about 95% of the times, Any song that KVN Mama sings that has been handled by Ramanjingar, you don't know the difference between whether it was sung by Ramanjingar or KVN. It used to be that almost like a carbon print. But even in that, KVN Mama used to say that's the kind of penchant he had. That's the kind of detail-oriented approach he had on Patantram. So every Sangati had to come the way it had to. And in this regard, he had great regards and respect for Pattama Mami, D.K. Pattammal. So he was a great fan of her Patantram. And he used to talk about how consistent she was. Every time she used to present a song, be it any concert or be it a house concert or be it any kind of accompaniments, these days it's very easy to get carried away on stage. When you have accompanists, when they embellish certain things and when audience they respond a certain way, you try to dwell on certain things. But Pattama Mami used to, disregard this in a very respectful way. She used to disregard all these things and stick to those Padantharam. Even today, if you hear any of her Padantharam, any of her song, be it when she was 16 when she sang, or whether she was 60 she sang, or whether she was 80 she sang, the Sangadis will be just the same in order. So that is something which Mani Iyer had emphasized so much. And in this regard, he was extremely particular about how important the number of times you sing a song before you get to stage to present it. So a very famous incident, I think most of us know here, but still it's worth reiterating. So it so happened that while Manitata was traveling along with Ramanjingar, I don't know if it was Rajamanikam Pillai or Chaudaya, they were traveling and the train got delayed by few hours. And Ramanjingar from his lower berth, he was just looking at some song and he was just humming it. So Manitata wasn't able to sleep beyond that after he started hearing this. So he came down from the berth and I asked him, this sounds like so great. So why don't we just have this sung in tonight's concert? For that, Ramanjingar said, it seems I'll say this in Tamil just to bring the flavor and then translate it. He said, Mani Iyer வாழ் இது இப்போ தான் ஊறின்னு இருக்கு, இன்னும் ஊறட்டும், இன்னும் ஒரு 1000-2000 வாட்டி பாடி விடுறேன், பாடிட்டு நல்லா ஊறினதுக்கப்புறம் கச்சேரியில் நம்ம அதை பண்ணிவிடலாம். Just means that it is still soaking, that song is still soaking, and probably after 1000 or 2000 times that he practices, he will slowly start to get into the stage. So if someone of the caliber of Ramanjingar can say something like this, then imagine the plight of artists like us. It's just unthinkable. And for that, it seems whoever was a violinist, he said, this is the same thing that he has been asking and requesting Ramanjingar in the last 7 months. And he has been giving the same reply, it seems. So that's the kind of, emphasis that those artists of those years placed on repeating a song a few thousand number of times before they even get to the stage. As far as Manodharmam is concerned, as I said before, I'm just summarizing this as much as possible because it is impossible for me to summarize it in a very, very, very succinct way. So I'm just trying my best because if I start elaborating, then I can't stop. So I'm being extremely careful here and being extremely aware of what I'm talking. So that's why I'm slightly tight-lipped here. As far as Manodharmam is concerned, let's start with Ragam, Swaram and Niraval. Ragam, he was a big, he was big on artists trying to get the essence of a ragam in 45 seconds to 50 seconds. He was extremely particular about that. He said that if an artist, if a vocalist or a violinist is not able to bring the sar or the essence of a ragam in, let's say, 45 seconds or 1 minute, it almost means that you are unable to, you're unable to get a hold of that ragam. So he was a firm believer of that. And very incidentally, a few years back, or actually some 15-20 years back, my father we had been listening to a Pandorali of Ramanjangar. He had sung Ramanathan Vijayakam. So he had sung a ragam before. It used to sound like a very in-depth, elaborate ragam. But actually when we timed it, we saw that the ragam did not exceed 48 seconds. But when you listen to it the first time, it'll almost feel like you have been listening to this Pandorali for like several hours. So that is the kind of essence that someone of that stature is able to bring in few seconds. So he was a firm believer of that. Swarams. As far as swarams are concerned, he was not a big fan of Kanak. He always said that that's perhaps the least important swaram. The most important is how are you able to articulate and bring about the essence of the ragam in the Manodharma, be it swaram or neraval. And he was big on Sarvalagu. So he used to say that if a musician, if a vocalist or a violinist is unable to bring out Sarvalagu and bring an impression about there, then it doesn't matter what kind of he is good at. He is the most authenticated version of Kanak. The supreme part of Kanak is how comfortable you are in Sarvalagu. So if you cannot sing that, if you cannot keep that and maintain that tempo while singing Sarvalagu, it doesn't really matter what kind of Kanak is, because Kanak is like, it's something which you can work on. It's almost like a preset thing. I can just think of like a very complicated Kanak and just come and reproduce it on stage. It's honestly speaking, most artists know that it's not a great thing. It doesn't require too much of a talent to do that, honestly. And as far as neraval is concerned, he was very, very open and articulate about saying how neraval was the supreme part of any kind of Manodharmam, because it has a combination of everything. The lyrics, the words have to be in their places, the syllables have to be in their places, and you cannot have any kind of deviation in the words that convey a specific meaning, and the meter has to be right, the tempo has to be right, and you have to cover ranges, and you have to cover the different tempos. So that's a combination, that's a confluence of everything, if you typically think about it. So that's the most hard part of Manodharmam. And he said that the true test of an vocalist lies in neraval. If a person is able to handle neraval easily, then he or she passes the test of Manodharmam. That was his idea. A very interesting anecdote here. He, along with Pattama and I think it was Alathu Srinivasa Iyer, or one of them. This was in early 60s. They were a panel of a Ragam Tanam Pallavi competition. So that it was in a very prestigious institution. And this Ragam Tanam Pallavi competition used to attract specific crowd, both from artists as well as Rasikas. It was open to public. And it used to draw a lot of crowd because it was a very, very informative and important session. And and usually the panelists are of the stature of Mani Iyer and Alathu Srinivasa Iyer, D.K. Pattamamami. So these kinds of people. So the kinds of entries that you get, there used to be resistance for even participation because people, they didn't want to get exposed to such kind of people. So that was a kind of, that was a kind of aura that this RTP competition had. So we had like about 25-30 participants this year. And what happened is, given that it was Mani Iyer, it was, Alathu Srinivasa Iyer, people came up presenting their entries of very complicated Pallavis. So all three of them, or the two of them, were listening to the first 2 or 3 entries. They were extremely complicated. So at the end of it, then Manitata realized that what's happening? It's all getting complicated here. So after the second or the third participant, he said, from now on, I don't want anyone to sing anything complicated. Just sing an Aditala Pallavi, okay? Even with Samam. Nothing complicated. Let it be even Urukala Pallavi. But the concept of a Ragam Tanam Pallavi is to explore neraval. That is what the Pallavi part is for. So that is the Pallavi part for. So he said, I don't want any complicated Adam, I don't want complicated Talams, I don't want your Atita Madam, I don't want the Nada Pallavis, just sing proper Neraval. And beyond a point, he knew that obviously these people might not have been prepared for a normal Aditalam Pallavi. He said, take a line from some song, a Neraval line from some song, a very, very simple line, but it's on Aditalam or Rupakatalam or Kandachap, something very, very basic, and sing Neraval. That's the test of Pallavi. You sing Ragam, you sing Tanam, doesn't really matter, but sing this. And as it turned out, like not even like 8 to 10% of the people were able to handle normal Neraval's simple straightforward lines. And that's when he told that, what's the point? I mean, like coming prepared for a very complicated Pallavi or a very complicated Kanak is like, it's preset. There is absolutely nothing that, it requires hard work, that's different. But that is not the true test of an artist. The test of an artist is impromptu. How am I able to handle Neraval on stage? And how am I able to handle a simple line without altering the tempo and adhering to the grammars of Neraval? So this was his view on, and of course, again, an extremely crude summary of his take on Manodharmam. And when you think about pushing the boundaries, which seems to be the taste or flavor of these days, of course, all great artists have pushed the boundaries, and he used to say it has to be extremely organic. He was never a believer of someone just starting to sing and say that I'm pushing the boundaries, and he was not an ardent fan of that. Neither was he an ardent fan of child prodigies and all that. He said that they perform really well when they are like 7 or 8, but are they performing literally knowing what they are doing, or if not? If they are not, then the credit is not theirs. It's like saying somebody is beautiful. If somebody is beautiful, like they are beautiful, that's all. Somebody is handsome, somebody is handsome. What did he or she do to that? He or she was born like that. So the same way, when a 7 or 8-year-old performs and everybody used to be awestruck, he used to say that what was this person's contribution? So he was never a great fan of child prodigies and all that, because to him it was like God-given. They didn't do anything. So he used to say that the most important thing is how they're able to sustain. 8 years you are great, 12 years you are great, 16, 17 are you greater? If the answer was no, then you fail the test. Fail the test of consistency, and fail the test of hard work, which needs to sustain that kind of a prodigal talent, if you call it. So I think I will just stop here as far as vocal is concerned, and let's see if there is any question. There was 1 or 2 questions, right? It's not a technical question, but a question about how factual was the book Sebastian and Sons. Okay, I am happy to answer this question, but perhaps I will just answer it as a first question to be after I finish this, because it is not directly related to what I am talking now, but I am definitely going to answer that question, whoever has asked this. Great. And let's see. Now, as far as violinists were fortunate enough to learn music aspects directly from your grandfather, no, I was not. So everything, each and everything, the sapasa that I sing till the monodam that I sing, the rana I sing, complicated things if you may call it, whatever I sing, entirely was taught by my father. So he is my one and only guru, and whatever I am talking now is also because of what he has told me. So nothing is mine. That's why I'm just talking with a lot of confidence, because I know for a fact that this is what my father told me. If I were to talk for something about myself or something that I know of, I would be extremely reserved. So I can just talk with a lot of confidence, because whatever I'm saying, word for word, is what my father had told me. So it's that credible. I think I answered your question. As far as moving on to violin, the role of violin in a concert. He was extremely particular about the preparation of a violinist as much as the preparation of a vocalist for a concert. He used to believe that the role of a violinist in terms of preparation, the preparation of a violinist has to be much greater than that of a vocalist, because whatever said and done, the vocalist determines the pace of the concert. He determines what needs to be sung. He determines what the tempo of the concert is. He determines what raga to be sung. Typically, I mean, if you talk about a concert, like 99% of the times, that's how it happens. That's how it's been happening until date. So he used to say that there is nothing wrong, and in fact, he used to encourage violinists to communicate with the vocalist to understand what he or she is going to sing the evening of the concert. He used to funnily talk about how he has, the kind of experiences that he had when he was a child, when he used to, when several artists were like about 20-25 years older to him, like Rajaram, Iyer, or Musri Srinivas. So these kinds of people, when he used to go and ask him like how uncomfortable that part was to ask them what they are going to sing, because it should not come across as being disrespectful, but at the same time he wants to know what they are singing so that he can be adequately prepared. And the kind of protocols those days were even greater than what it is now. I mean, even before talking to the artist, you have to move through the disciples channel to see whether he was available to talk. Even if he was available to talk, was he in a good mood to take these kinds of questions? Even if those questions were right, is he or she going to stick to whatever he says he's going to do, or deliberately mislead them, saying they don't know what I'm going to sing Kambodhi, I'm going to sing Kana Konkodi and then sing Sri Krishna Bhajamanasya, or just not let them know that they are going to sing a Pallavi and then sing a Pallavi on stage. So he used to say that the violinists and the mridangas, the accompanists in general, they have to be additionally prepared. So whatever it takes, he used to say, Nanna vocalist kaka pudichu vechukonum indha samayathila, translating to they have to almost be a sycophant just to ensure that they are in the good books of the vocalist to know what they are singing. At least to that effect, whether you are genuine in being like a sycophant or whether you fake it, do it, so get your job done properly. So that was his view. And in this regard, he used to famously talk about, I mean, this is something which perhaps most of us know. He used to talk about this example of Rajaram when GN sir used to sing like new ragas. Let's say, I'm just making this up. Let's say in a concert he starts singing Chanchu Kampodi. I mean, that's not very easily handled, or even today it's not frequently handled, or it's not like elaborately handled. As we all know, GN sir was known for this. So when he sings this, he used to sing such kinds of ragas or Malavi or something like that, like for, let's say, some 5 or 6 minutes. So it used to be a new thing. So Rajaram Pillai, given who he is, he used to reply very safely for like about 1.5 minutes and summarize the ragam in a very nice way and stop it. And he used to say he will never risk it. So the first time he hears something, he will ensure that the grounds are covered, like he doesn't fall off. And he used to summarize it very neatly and without any risk, he used to get it done on stage. But right after the concert, after dinner, he used to say, or notebook and pen, like he used to carry a notebook and a pen and go to the place of GN sir, whichever room he's staying in. So he used to say how Rajaram Pillai used to say, இன்னைக்கு நீங்க அந்த மாளவி பாடினாலே என்ன மாளவி அது மாளவிங்கிறதே எனக்கு தெரியாதே, நான் எவ்வளோ மோசமாக வாசிச்சுட்டேன், ரொம்ப மோசமாக நான் வாசிச்சுட்டேனே, நீங்கள் உங்களை மாதிரி இருக்கிறவாள்லாம் எனக்கு சொல்லி தந்தால் தானே எனக்குலாம் தெரியும், நீங்களாம் எவ்வளோ பெரிய. He used to say that he used to put himself so much down and elevate GN sir so much. Not that GN sir will fall for it, but that's the way that he presented it in such a way that he can get the information and extract the most out of what Malavi is all about. Okay, so he used to get the entire thing out of GN sir and he used to take notes and he used to notate, it seems. So let's say he sang Nena Runchinalo Malavi, and he used to take notations of, he used to say the third Sangati was brilliant. You went from Pa to Rishabam, and how was it? He used to ask. Not that he didn't know. He just needs to know in detail about what this entire song was about. So he used to make notes. And Manitada used to say, இது எதுக்குன்னு கேட்டதுன்னா, அடுத்த கச்சேரிக்கு இதே மாளவி பாடினார்னா அவருக்கு மேலே இவர் அப்ளாஸ் வாங்கணும். He used to say that the reason why he used to get this information is because he used to prepare adequately before the next concert. So the next time he sings Malavi, Rajaram play is able to draw more applause than GN sir. And that's happened. So that's the kind of preparation that he believed in. And as far as following is concerned, he strictly believed in this ratio of some 50 to 60%, which is if an artist sings a ragam for 10 minutes, the violinist should not exist. I mean, it's as per him. I mean, whether we like it or not is a different thing, and whether we accept to that, accede to that, those are different things. This was his view. He has been successful and been on top for 60 years, so I'm just obligated to convey whatever it is. So he used to say, just follow this 50-60% rule. If the artist sings a ragam for 10 minutes, just the violin not exceed 5 or 6 minutes at the most. The reason is because the audience are already glutted with 10 minutes of some ragam. Once again, for the violinist to restart the entire thing and reinvent the wheel and go on depths of everything that the vocalist did is going to be, whether you're an ardent fan of that ragam or whether you're an ardent fan of the violinist, whatever it may be, it is a drag in the concert. Again, this was a concert perspective. It was not about solo. I'm just talking about following. And he used to say, if the artist is popular, make that 60% 30%. Because if somebody comes to M.S. Subbulakshmi's concert, they are not coming because of the violinist and the mridangist. They are coming for M.S. Subbulakshmi's. So it's even more important that you stick to this lower end of the ratio while returning. Swarams, he strictly believed this was also for vocalist as well as violinist. One second, I just see an interesting question. Quote some anecdotes about KV and Mama. Sure, can you just note that down? Anecdotes about KV and Mama. Yeah, let me just finish this violin part and come to that. I just see it in the live stream, and if you are able to see those questions, just make note of them. So as far as swarams are concerned, he used to say whether it was a violinist or a vocalist, in at least these 4 talams, Adi talam, Kanda chapu, Misra chapu, and Rupagam, whichever the edam is, be it samam or 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever it is, you should know to take a 5 off and get to the edam. That was a strong contention. That is the first step. Second step is, ஒரு 3 ததிகுணம் வச்சு எடுக்க தெரியணும் எந்த இடத்துக்கும். Like 3 5s to the edam is something which is non-negotiable, especially for a violinist, because you never know what the vocalist is going to come prepared for. So at the very least, if you know which place to take the 3 5s, then you will be prepared to know that to take the 3 6s, because it's just 3 before. Or if you want to give carvai, so the least that you should know is 5 and 3 5s. And he used to say that this is the savior. This is the savior for a violinist, because you can just go on and on and on. First you can play like 3 5s, then you can play like 5 1 carvai, 5 1 carvai, then 5, then you can make it 5 2 carvai. So it's like an infinite possibility. Using whatever kanaka you want, the return would be in terms of 5s or in terms of 7. So that it's like a great safeguard for the violinist. And in terms of enhancing the vocal and enhancing the concert effect per se, he believed in the continuity of bowing for violinist. So a lot of times these days we see that the violinist takes the bow off of the violin and takes rest and comes back. But when you listen to the concerts of the past, you will see that the bowing will be continuous. There will be no gap in it. Like all the 3.5 hours or 4 hours, they won't take it. It was almost considered a sin to take the bow off of the violin. He used to say that this gives a lot of continuity to the concert, and this I have heard from Sri Alagiri Swami and Veera Mama, both of them themselves, in 1991 or 92, when we were in Calicut for a Tyagaraja Utsavam. They both have told me that they have told both of them, which I have also heard from Pattamamami and Ramanuja Iyengar, saying that violin is like the second tambura, meaning that like how it is impossible to sing without a tambura, it is almost the concert gets such a big hiatus when the violin is not playing. So it's extremely important that people typically do not take the bow off during a concert, and this you will see greatly, like really greatly, when you compare the past concerts with the present concert. If you see that the effect will be totally continuous on those dates, on those concerts, compared to this. So, okay. I think I will stop here as far as the role of violin is concerned. If there is any, let me see if there are any pertinent questions here as far as violin is concerned. Okay, what was Mani Iyer's take on voice culture for vocalists? Great question. So here I am obligated to present exactly what he said. He said that vocalists' voice can be categorized into two major categories. One is the voice like that of Chembai, which is like totally open-throated, and there are no nitty-gritties to it. It is just plain and straight. What you see is what you get. That kind of a voice, which he believed that is not something which you can be trained on. It is something which is God-given. So that is one kind of a voice. The other voice, the natural singing voice, according to him, the next kind is that of Ramanuja Iyengar. So he said that he thought if there was a person who was thrown into this world and who had no exposure to Carnatic music, and say suddenly one day he starts singing, he would sing the way that Ramanuja Iyengar sings. So this was his ideation of what Ramanuja Iyengar's voice was. And he used to say this was a kind of voice which can be trained. And he said the way he modulates his voice, this I have also heard from KV and Mama. Like, I mean, he used to say several, funny instances. So in a specific village, when I say this, a lot of people would know what I mean, but I'm not going to explicitly say that out. So there are several villages deep down in Tamil Nadu, where you had like certain pockets of the village being ardent and like really ardent fan of certain artists. So typically those three were either Ramanuja Iyengar, Shammangudi Srinivasa Iyer, or GN sir. So if you were a fanatic of Ramanuja Iyengar, then by default you had to hate the other two. And if you were a fanatic of GN sir, then you had by default to hate the other two and vice versa. So that's how the Aidhigam was. But regardless of this, any of these persons' concert, everyone will attend. And I mean, they will enjoy the most. But ideologically, they have to hate the other two. So that's how it was. And typically what happens is, this has happened like numerous times it seems. Manitata used to say that just to ensure and put Ramanuja Iyengar on the back foot, they used to prepare specific dishes which will actually contract your voice and make it uncomfortable for singing. The typical thing is you add lot of sugar and jaggery in Chakkapradaman. Chakkapradaman is already like extremely sweet, and vocalists will know that when you have lots of sweets, like especially like something like Chakkapradaman, it's not easy to open your voice up. Okay, it takes a long time to actually get to feet. So they used to add much more to that, and they used to present such dishes to Ramanuja Iyengar before the concert. Ramanuja Iyengar never used to mind about it. He was saying, "Give me more," and he will. I mean, he was like a really cool person. Okay? He never used to say. I mean, interestingly, any person who asks, "Can I be on backstage and sing along with you?" It doesn't really matter whether it was his student, his disciple. He would say, "Oh, Dharalama paade." He would say like, "Sing, but molla paade." He would say. So that kind of a person he was. So he was fine with everything. So he used to say, when they used to serve him this, he used to say, just give me more. This is amazing. And he was like a very sweetly spoken person. He will never offend anyone with his words. So he used to say this, and Mani Tata used to get extremely anxious. He will be like, even one tumbler of this should be like, it's like a curse for a vocalist, and this person is like having more and more and more and more. What am I going to expect in this concert? So he used to say, when the concert begins, he'll start something like low-key, something like a Teradiya Karada, and slowly test his voice. He used to say that's the kind of acumen a vocalist should have. So right through the concert, he will be testing his voice. The first 2 or 3 minutes, he will know what the pain points are, what the shortcomings are, and what his strengths are. Then he will go with something like Endaro Mahanubhavulu. And then by the end of Endaro Mahanubhavulu, like 15-20 minutes into the concert, he would have assessed his voice entirely. And then he will say, like saying that then it's going to be like a blockbuster. He's going to like just carry on the show. So he used to say, that is a kind of voice which you can train on. So in this regard, Kevin Mama used to give a lot of tips about how to warm up your voice. Especially in the morning, he used to say that you can, in the mornings, vocalists know that you can go a lot in the mantra sthai, but not in the upper ranges. So he used to say that, he used to tell me specifically, like, don't go beyond Rishabham or Gandharam. Like, not the Aditara part, Thara part. So, those kinds of things. So he believed in this kinds of exercises which vocalists need to follow. And it's not possible for me to summarize everything or give you the entire kind of exercises that I follow, like what I have been told of by KVN Mama or Appa, or what Mani Tata told. But his ideology was the voice culture and the vocal production of Ramanjingar was such that even when he had like fever, cough, cold, he had never cancelled a concert because of voice issues. He used to navigate those voice issues and make the concert successful. And he used to say that's why even when he was like 75, 80 when he died, like few weeks before his passing away, he performed a concert. And he used to say that unless somebody had followed him like so keenly for several years, you wouldn't know what the problem is. So he eliminated the physical strain from vocal production. So that is the kind of voice culture that he believed in. So that's the question. Let's say. The Shruti Suddham of Ariyakudi was not, okay, I am not competent enough to talk about the shortcomings of people, if at all it existed. So I'm going to take a pass on that question. So the shake that you're talking about, it could be owing to several reasons. Sometimes it gives a flavor. So when he typically shakes Rishabham or Gandharam, it actually gives a feel. So you don't know whether it was because of vocal production or whether he was trying to emote something. That is one thing, I see that positively. But if you're talking about Shruti Suddham, I am not competent enough because I have to be like great in Shruti Suddham to even comment on whether somebody else was good or bad. Least of all to someone like Ramanujan or Kavian who are doyens. And if people like us exist today, it's because of people like them. So I am not even on the periphery of being someone to even talk about their music. I can only talk about their greatness. So I'm excusing myself of this question and only partially answering that. Let me just think. This is an excellent question. Should a concert be pre-planned and prepared, or should we try to go more with the flow on stage? What was Mani Iyer's thoughts about it? I would like to draw upon several instances here, but I'll just pick one. He completely believed in preparing for a concert. So there is a difference between preparing and planning exactly to the T. For example, even in last night's concert, I had something in mind, and just before getting onto the stage, I had a request. I had to change. So I had to change not only that song, but I had to ensure that even with that new addition, the talam variation, the composer variation, the language variation, the kind of bhava of the ragams, I bring everything else together. So to that extent, if you're experienced enough, you should be in a position to address that. So that is about being impromptu on stage and being dynamic to adapt to requests of people. And that happens all the time to most of us. Now the point is about planning. The planning is something which Mani Tata entirely believed on. He said that he had to be constantly thinking. And he said that the arsenal should be this much so that you are able to present this much in concert. Which basically means that if you're planning to sing, let's say, Kambodi, you have to be planned, you have to plan yourself to sing almost a Rangananam Pallavi in Kambodi, various combinations, various compositions, various genres, and be ready with it and plan and prepare so much, and then you present whatever little you can so that you can bring the best of everything. In that regard, in the 60s, mid-60s, there was a very, very famous and popular combination. It was like Lalgudi Rajaram sir, Srimati Mami, Mani Tata, and Rajaram, double Mridangam. So every morning of this concert, Lalgudi Mama used to come and do namaskaram to Mani Tata. So it so used to happen that, of course, Lalgudi Mama and my Peripa, Rajaram Peripa, were like extremely close friends, and they had Lalgudi Mama had extremely high regards for Rajaram Peripa's, the arithmetic skills and his intelligence and brilliance. So every time after doing the namaskaram, Lalgudi Mama used to come out of the house and have a long conversation with Rajaram Peripa on various aspects. So this used to happen, like he used to come home around like 8 or 8:15, do the namaskaram and have few words, and 10-15 minutes after that he will leave, and then from 8:30 onwards until 10 or 10:30, having long drawn conversations with Rajaram Peripa on each and everything. It could be music related, it could be around music, it could be politics, it could be anything. So Mani Tata, we will never know that Mani Tata notices a lot of things, but like any other greats, he has every inch of detail that is registered in him. May not show it out. So after like 11 or 11:30, when he has a conversation with Rajaram Peripa, and when he talks about Kanakko or whatever they are planning to play that evening for the concert, and when Rajaram Peripa like slips or something like that, or when he doesn't get it astutely, he used to say, "Iduthaan unakkum avarukkum vidyasam. அவர் எல்லாம் ப்ராக்டிஸ் பண்ணி முடிச்சுட்டு உங்ககிட்ட வந்து 2 மணி நேரம் அரட்டை அடிச்சுட்டு இருக்கார். நீ ஒன்றுமே ப்ராக்டிஸ் பண்ணாமல் அவரோட நீ அரட்டை அடிச்சுட்டு இருக்க." He used to say that Lalgudi has prepared for everything. He knows to the T what he is presenting. And then he is coming here, he has finished all the practice, he has come here, and then he is using the time as like a break to talk to you. But you have taken off of your practice time and using that break time of his to waste your time even further. And he used to say that, இப்படி நீ பேசின்னு இருக்க, அங்கே ஒவ்வொரு கீர்த்தனையும் அவர் சலவை சட்டையாட்டம் போடுவார். அது ஒன்றும் அப்படி புதுசாக வந்துட்டு இருக்கோம். நீ பேனு பார்த்துட்டு இருப்ப, ஐயோ இது என்ன இவ்வளோ பெருசாக இருக்குது, இவ்வளோ பிரமாதமாக இருக்குன்னு பார்த்துட்டு இருப்ப. அதுக்கெல்லாம் காரணம் உங்ககிட்ட பேசுறதுக்கு முன்னாடியே எல்லாத்தையும் ப்ரிப்பேர் பண்ணி வந்துவிட்டார் அப்படின்ட்டு. ஸோ that is a kind of importance he placed on planning. And yeah, so are there any other questions? Yeah, there are many questions. Can I just scroll up, down? No, I just take the first, I have answered the first question. Yes. Just go up. Yeah, first question, Sebastian and Sons, I said that I'll reserve it for the last because it's not directly linked to this. Mani has taken voice culture, I told you. Should concert, 3 is done. Yeah. 4th is, fourth was also done. Like 5th, how many hours of practice the past legends recommend for vocalists? I have not, I don't remember or I don't recall Appa telling me anything specific about how many hours of practice that a specific vocalist or vocalist in general should do. I don't think, because if that is something that Mani Tata had specifically told, then I would have been the first person to know of it because of Appa. I don't think he had a strong view on that. I don't know, probably, but I don't know. But I said that Kevin Mama that to care about that, and also to ensure that the voice is in good shape. He used to say that it was important to have practice in different parts. So one part was exclusively for this akara, which is typically the morning. Then over later in the day, like later in the morning, you just start off exploring like few other notes above. And then the third session is what he typically recommended for going full throttle. And on days of concert, he used to tell me that, in fact, during one of the concerts that evening, Appa had taken me to Kevin Mama's house. And he was telling me, so that was the last day that I went out in the morning of a concert. I have never done that. So this was like 92 or 93 or 94. So since then, it has never been like, I have never done that. I'm not saying that therefore I am great or therefore my voice is great or whatever. But as a rule of thumb, since Kevin Mama has told that, I have never done that. I have never explored that. So yeah, I mean, I would probably imagine that you actually break the practice into several parts so that you don't overstrain your voice either. And I'm not a big fan of using mics for practice. I mean, you may think that you are conserving your voice, but unless you bring out your natural voice out, no amount of external support is going to help you. Those external supports come as a lender of the last resort. But if you are going to rely on them, if there is going to be a need-based thing, then I'm pretty sure you're going to lose your original voice. So I would strongly say that don't do that. Don't practice with a mic. Just practice with your natural voice. That's when you will get to know what your voice is. And then you can go on stage and say that, you know what, increase my lows, increase my bass, increase my treble, increase my mid-highs, increase my highs, or do whatever you want, increase my gain. Those things are technical stuff. We are not sound engineers. Vocalists are first vocalists, which means we have to be aware of what our voices are. Which means we have to practice enough in our natural voices to understand what our natural voice is. And then we can add on flavors. If the bass itself is like dependent on some add-ons, then what are you building up on? Nothing. So that's my 2 cents. Yeah, that was the 5th question, right? What are your views on Hindustani music, the way in which they render, concentrating more on Shruti and convenient in singing lower octaves? If you generally ask me about my views on Hindustani music, I don't listen to a lot of Hindustani music. Like, I don't actively seek out. Of course, there are great artists whom I listen to, but I don't actively seek out. When I listen to them, like I'm inspired, awestruck and all that stuff. Yeah, the way in which they render, of course, I mean, that's their focus, right? The focus of Hindustani music is more on Shruti Suddham, their voice culture and all that. And I don't fall into this trap of comparing Hindustani music and Carnatic music and saying one thing is better than the other or one is inferior or superior. It is just a question of training. I mean, like, it's basic input-output matrix, right? You spend like 80% of your time adhering to Shruti, obviously the output is going to show out in Shruti. If you spend like 70% of your time on Kanakas, that output is going to show up there. And whatever is the input, proportionately the output is going to come out. That's all. So in general, they spend a lot of time on Shruti Suddham and adhering to Shruti and all that stuff. Yes. So therefore, our Carnatic music has different, I mean, it gives scope for several people with several things. The top-notch artists of today, they may not be great for Shruti Suddham, but they can carry a concert much better than a Hindustani, I mean, like in terms of, appealing to public and carrying on the show. They might be much better in carrying on a show by a Hindustani music who may be adhering to Shruti 100% of the times. So that's the greatness of Carnatic music. It gives scopes for everything. So a person with a bad voice, we have example of so many great artists who may not have a great voice, but they are extremely successful, popular artists who cater both to the Rasikas as well as, artists. And you have people who have just carried on the show exclusively because of their voice. There are so many people who have been known for Manodharmam exclusively for Swarams, carry on the show. They may not be great in Shruti Suddham. There have been people who may not be great in Layam, but the other aspects of it would compensate and they might be great. So that's the greatness of Carnatic music, especially in terms of concert platform. If you work on something really hard, and if you're able to showcase that in that specific way, there is nothing to stop you. So to answer your question, yes, Hindustani music, I mean, they spend a lot of time. They spend a lot of time on Shruti adherence, and therefore it comes out. If Carnatic musicians spend as much time, I mean, I don't see a reason why they should not. Should an artist be open-minded to all forms of music and artists? It depends on how you define open-minded. So if you say that, open-minded means that I have to wear my shirt upside down and go listen to a concert, I don't know. Or I don't know what you mean by open-minded. So unless you're specific, I wouldn't know what open-minded means, because it's an entire spectrum. What I consider open-minded, you may not consider. To me, open-minded is for example, a Rasika to be open-minded to listen to oldest form of music. When you say, but you can just question me on that, saying that, you know what, you're only going back in the past and therefore you're regressive and you're not open-minded. To me, that's not open-minded, that's just the opposite of that. So when I say that there are old songs of Tyagaraja which I'm going to present in a concert, but if the Rasika says that no, explore new spectrum, then I am saying that the Rasika is not open-minded because he or she has not listened to the song that I'm going to present. So what is open-minded? So it all depends on the degree and it all depends on the specific instance of what you mean by open-minded. I think in general people are open-minded. Did Palghat Mani Iyer encourage and insist that you take up Carnatic music? No, he did not. In fact, he was discouraging of all his sons to take up music full time. So that's something which is known. The only thing, the only bro beating I can have here, if I may, is that I was extremely small when Manitata passed away. So in his deathbed, when he lost his consciousness, he only spoke of Ramanjangar, Dakshinamurthy Pillai, Chembai, and a few other people. So the only family member that he spoke about, even during his losing of consciousness in his deathbed, was saying that Pudu Kolandeki paata kathata, Mridangam kathata. So Pudu Kolandai was basically me. So I consider that probably the greatest blessing that I could ever have. No award, no accolade, nothing can match that. Whether I live to the true expectation of what he meant by, teaching properly, that is something that is questionable. That's like an eternal question. Unless I meet him, I wouldn't know what he meant by that. So that's not going to happen. But yeah, that is the only reference to me learning music through Mani Iyer, which didn't happen like consciously. He didn't say that I teach him music. It was like after he lost his consciousness. Is there any reason for Sri Shyama Shastri's songs sung less than as compared to other two trinities? I mean, the point is like, we have only so much of songs from Shyama Shastri, right? I mean, in fact, the ones are in circulation are like less than 100 in number, while compared to Dikshidhar or Tyagaraja. So in that proportion, obviously, you are expected to lose out on that, because again, then you'll start repeating the same songs again and again. And these days, you are like merciless. You Rasikas are merciless. You say that just like 4 months back, I heard you sing this. And in this concert, you are repeating this. So we have to be careful on that. Anecdotes, Mani Iyer with KVN Mama and MDR. Yeah, I mean, as I said, there are like several instances. I'll just pick like a very humorous one. So KVN Mama used to say that when he was doing partial Gurukulam in Manitata's house, so Manitata sometimes used to say that sing some song. Let's say Kalyani Varnam. I'm just making this up. So this is not exactly what it is. Let's say it's Kalyani Varnam. He says, Kalyani Varnam paadu, kadaki pedu nodren. So until he comes back, he should be singing Kalyani Varnam. So he used to take a umbrella and go. And KVN Mama has said this. I mean, he has told me also. So I know this. So when coming back, I mean, KVN Mama wouldn't know that Manitata is actually listening to him sing. He would have thought that, okay, he has gone. But perhaps, I mean, I don't know whether it was a conscious decision of Manitata to not leave and listen to him, or probably it was like, it just happened. So sometimes Manitata used to get like extremely disturbed the way KVN Mama sings, or whether if he changes the sangari of what Ramanjanga does. So he used to take that umbrella, and you see the sharp side, right? He used to drill it on KVN Mama's thighs when he was singing. Suddenly when he is putting talam, there will be an umbrella which will be drilling his thighs, because Manitata used to be so agitated, and he'll just screw that up. He'll say that, what are you singing? I mean, he used to scream. I mean, he wouldn't know whether to scream or whether to sing. He used to say, how can I sing when I'm in pain? And when he's like, literally, he's just drilling the umbrella on the sharp side on his thighs. And that used to come like impromptu, like it will come like suddenly. And he will just go even off of it. He'll be saying, Chiru, and he'll be like, I mean, what am I going to get for this? So that is one interesting incident. With MDR, there are several instances, and the one thing which is also on records, I'll just take a quick coffee break. So this is also on records. So there is one famous, very very famous concert in circulation, where it's Bombay concert. Oh no, it was not Bombay. It's a Krishnagana Sabha concert. So you have the train that crosses by at around 8:45. I don't know. I think it is boat mail. I don't know. This was a concert in early 70s or late 60s. So when MDR is singing and he leaves a small part for the Mridangam to fill in before he takes in the Anupalavi. So he sings the song, he leaves a space for Manitata Stirmanam. So the talam goes like this and the train goes like din 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 din, and like this it goes. And Manitata follows that, gets the clue and follows it by saying din 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 nanna din 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 nanna din, and then he stops after the train passes by and he says that எல்லாத்துலேயும் லயம் இருக்கு பாருங்க, ட்ரெயின் எங்கேயோ போயிட்டு இருக்கு, அதுலேயும் லயம் இருக்குது பாருங்க. அண்ட் எம்டிஆர் ரிட்டார்ட்ஸ், அதில் வெறும் லயம் தான் இருக்குது, நீங்கள் வாசிக்கிறதுல நாதமும் சேர்ந்து இருக்குது அப்படின்னு. ஸோ தட்ஸ் ஆன் ரெக்கார்ட்ஸ். ஸோ தட் ஜஸ்ட் ஷோஸ் the astuteness in which people operated, and especially when people of great stature they are around, what we speak normally or what we sing normally, you get only like 10% or 5% of it, and to just supersede that just shows the kind of confidence and the kind of the energy and the astuteness with which you operate. So that's something which I'm always fascinated about. Yeah, I mean, how much time do we have? Like, just confirm with them. I'll just quickly talk on Mridangam and then answer the question on Sebastian and Sons. Had PMI encouraged and insisted you to take up Carnatic? I answered that. Good? Okay. So, let me just get back to track on his views on Mridangam and Upapakvadyam, and after that, I'll answer the question on Sebastian and Sons. So, again, as far as Mridangam and Upapakvadyam was concerned, as I always said, the theme was, it doesn't really matter how individually brilliant you are. If you are not able to enhance the concert effort, then you are not a great Mridangist or Upapakvadyam artist, according to him. He used to say that individual brilliance is great if you are doing leg dumps. If you are great in Kanaka, great. But if the Kanaka is not helping the main artist, and therefore enhancing the concert effect, then your brilliance doesn't have a place. He used to cite so many instances of great doyens whom he revered for Kanaka. But he used to say, அவ ஒரு மீட்டு சாப்பு கொடுத்தா அவர் ஒரு டேக்கா கொடுத்துன்னு வருவா, அவள் ஒன்றுமே பண்ண மாட்டா, சாதாரணமாக ஒரு தெளியலேரூராமா அப்படின்னா அப்படின்பா. When he even recollects that, the passion and depth with which he used to even relay this information, that is something like that tells you volumes of how he placed importance to the bhavam aspect and how you enhance the song, how you enhance the vocal and violin, how you bring together how you synergize the entire thing. He used to say, The most important part was how you are able to, within maintaining the tempo, bring about variations. Now, whether, again, this gets back to the point that I was alluding earlier, whether it is Taniyavartanam. So, as far as Taniyavartanam is concerned, he was not a big fan of Taniyavartanam. He said that even if it is Palghat Mani Iyer or Payani, Taniyavartanam is just one small aspect. And he never considered that a person who was great in playing the Taniyavartanam was to be considered a great Mridangist. He said that it is again, it's a planned thing, like a Carnatic. He said, if outside of this Taniyavartanam, if the Mridangist is able to support the vocalist and the violinist and bring the concert to fore, even if he screws up the Taniyavartanam, it doesn't really matter. That was his view. He said that the opposite was not acceptable to him. He said that a person who plays Taniyavartanam brilliantly, but is not, he's not that much, and he's just okay in accompanying the violinist or the vocalist. He said that that's not a successful Mridangist. It's not a successful Mridangist. Here, I just want to suggest people who are really young, who are in their 20s and 30s, who are learning Mridangam. I see a lot of people, until COVID, I used to see a lot of people when big artists accompany me, they used to come just during the main piece of the concert, around like 7:30, the concert, so that they can listen to the Taniyavartanam. The point is, they are great not because they play the 20 minutes of Taniyavartanam. They are great because what they have played until then is superlative. So it's extremely important for youngsters to first start understanding how the great Vidwans have played for songs, for violin, for vocal, how they follow, how they play differently for the same song for a vocalist versus an instrumentalist. Same Theliyila Irurama, when it is played on flute, when the Mridangist plays the way that he exactly plays for a vocalist, it's not going to gel at all. He used to say, I don't do marketing. He used to say, I'm quoting, I don't do marketing. All the marketing that I do is on stage. I will ensure that I assess the vocalist, and when there are shortcomings of the vocalist, then the Mridangist will take the lead so that everybody's attention is on the Mridangam. When the vocalist is comfortable presenting something, I will take a backstage so that everyone focuses on the main artist. Now tell me, wouldn't the main artist prefer me here? So this was his question. This was very famous question. He used to say, நான் காக்கா பிடிக்க மாட்டேன், எல்லா காக்கா பிடிக்கிறதும் ஸ்டேஜில் தான். அந்த 3.5 மணி நேரம் vocalistையும் violinistையும் காக்கா பிடிச்சிட்டு நான் வந்துடுவேன். அதுக்கப்புறம் எனக்கு எதுக்கு காக்கா பிடிக்கிறதுக்கு அவசியமே இல்லையே எனக்கு. Why do I need marketing if I'm doing this on stage for those 3.5-4 hours? So, and he was not a big fan of big chorwise or complicated chorwise. And he used to say, he used to talk so highly of Tanjavur Vaidyanatha, his guru, Tanjavur Vaidyanatha Iyer, saying how he used to simplify several moras and chorwise so that it becomes accessible to all. And he used to famously talk about the mohara for Rupagatanam that Tanjavur Vaidyanatha Iyer simplified, and it's universally applicable. So he was a big fan of smart chorwise and short ones rather than long elongated ones which goes on and on and on and on, having like no end to it. So he always preferred that. And as far as Upapakavadyam is concerned, he used to say that like how violin was to vocal, the Upapakavadyam had to be for a Mridangam. And things have changed dramatically both with respect to violin and Upapakavadyam in the last 20-25 years, to say the least. If you think about the accompaniment, the violin accompaniment until like 80s and post that, this I can say from my own experience, and the role of Upapakavadyam, what Upapakavadyam Vidwans are able to achieve these days. And I don't think it was even thinkable several decades back. That being said, Manitata used to attribute his entire genius to only two people. One, Tanjavur Vaidyanatha, who trained him off stage, and Dakshinamurthy Pillai, who trained him on stage. So this is just to say that it is not that I cannot draw like a blanket thing saying that things have changed now for the better or for the worse. I'm not 150 years old to come and comment on that. But saying typically the trajectory has been very different compared to what the vocalists or the vocalists or the mridangists have been. So that being said, again I'm going to reiterate the point that the entire focus was on gelling together, coming together and enhancing the concert effect. Yeah, I'll just take a few more questions. Okay, his reason for mic-less concerts. Something like Nadam gets compromised or it relaxes artist playing or something else. Okay, so first let me tell you this. Every artist, be it a vocalist, violinist or a mridangist, knows or should know, if he or she is sufficiently experienced enough, that what you produce naturally is not the same as what comes through the mic. You may strongly argue that it's much better when it comes out of the mic, or you can strongly argue otherwise. Regardless, it is not true. There is no microphone system in the world that I am aware of. Probably there is. Some people might educate me on this. That I am aware of, that all it does is just amplify the volume. Because this is simple physics. Anything that gets transferred in terms of energy, it loses its original form. It compromises on the original value. So typically what I say now, while compared to what it comes through the mic, there is a translation, there is a mechanical and an electrical translation. And obviously energy is going to get lost and it's going to get transferred in a different way. So by definition, it's not the original sound. So that's why, if you think of mic-less concerts, forget the inaccuracies and the mistakes that we make. If you just strip off all those things, the sound, the natural sound of the voice, the mridangam and the violinist is like way different, and it is much more appealing. There are several settings even here in India and outside of India where, even today in, I'm not too sure, it's been quite some time that I sang in NCPA, Bombay, they still go mic-less. So, the quality is amazing. And his views is that, this was one view. He said that microphones these days, they change the tenor and tone of violin, mridangam and vocal. So what it typically does is, his view was, if it was just restricted to amplification, so which means basically you put up the speakers beyond, let's say the rows, let's say there are like 25 rows. And let's say the first 10 rows, people in the first 10 rows are able to clearly listen or hear what the vocalist is singing. Then you keep the speakers from the 11th row onwards. Why do you require speaker for the first row audience themselves? When they are able to listen to the natural sound so clearly, what is the point of this? Because anyways, this is what is coming through the speaker is different from what naturally comes out of our vocal cords or the violin or the mridangam. What is the point? That is the first question. So he said, let it be like 15,000 people. He didn't say that there should be no mic. Let's make it very, very clear. The reason why he went for no mic is because people could not understand this at that time. So he said, mic is fine as long as everyone listens to the same quality of, maybe he was far ahead of times. Maybe we still don't have this kind of a system in place. That is a different thing altogether. But his views against mic was this. It changes the natural tone and tenor of everyone. So why use something like that? Okay, fine. If we have to use it, why not use it only for those people who are not able to listen to this? And we all know for a fact that, let's say a simple thing. If I'm singing like, this is not the same way I would sing when there is a mic. Because the blows are different, so I have to slightly ensure that the blow doesn't capture up much, it doesn't conk up. So I have to sing, for example, if there is a mic which picks up the mid ranges more, if there was a mic here, I would sing This is how I would sing, because that bha should not be sounding like really out of proportion. So these kinds of changes are detrimental to the natural flow of music, is what his views were. So if I have to be conscious on anything outside of music, then I cannot be a true artist whose entire focus should be on music. So, I mean, if it can happen to vocal, obviously it can happen to violin, it can happen to Mridangam. So that is something which he was very, very particular about. And he also said, so this is something which many people might find it hard to understand, but nevertheless, I mean, I have to document this since we are talking about his views. He said that there are chinna sangati, periya sangati, like the ones which are sung softly, certain things which are sung loudly. And typically, when there was no microphone system, he used to say this was kind of like a wave system which happened. For example, if I were to sing, let's say that was a soft sangati, typically this will be heard only for the first 15-20 rows. And beyond that, it will be the mere suggestion which makes the music even better. It was a suggestion, but they may not be able to hear that very clearly, but they will think that, okay, this is what he's trying to attempt. And that kind of a perception adds a lot of class and flavor and value to Carnatic music. That was his view. And with microphone system, which plainly negates all these things, I have to make adjustments to make it sound softer or harder. So if that is going to be the focus, then that's again going to take off the naturality of Carnatic music. So this is the reason why he was like against mic. Attraction. Okay, Taniyavartanam not draw as much attraction from lay rasikas as other segments. How do the percussionists make up for this and make something so abstract, captivating to them? This is definitely an interesting question. I think it again comes back to the question of credibility. Now, for example, there are great doyens today. When they are playing Taniyavartanam, I'm pretty sure, I mean, they've played for me too. During their Taniyavartanam, not even one soul gets up. The reason is because whether these people follow or not, they have built the credibility and the brand value so much for so long that they know for a fact that it will be enjoyable. See, it is one thing to present things which are enjoyable, and it's one thing to present complicated things which are enjoyable. So the genius comes in presenting something which is very complicated but sounding easy and consumable for people. So that is a test of greatness. So when you think about the greats of today who play the Mridangam, you will definitely see that nobody gets up. Now, if you were to logically break this down, I would say that if the Mridangam is so exemplary until the Taniyavartanam, and it is able to captivate, let's say that you listen to a new Mridangist whom you have not heard before, and that person, he or she is able to make a great impact accompanying until the Taniyavartanam, I am pretty sure you would be really inquisitive to know how the Taniyavartanam is handled. I am just logically breaking this down. I am not too sure if this is factual, but this is my take based on my experience. If this was as fresh to you, this Mridangist was as fresh to you as the way that I am suggesting, then I am pretty sure that you will be really intrigued to know how the Taniyavartanam is being handled. And now, if this person screws up the Taniyavartanam, the next time you will not sit in the Taniyavartanam. But if that person is able to really captivate you during the Taniyavartanam, then in fact you are going to suggest to someone else who gets up in the Taniyavartanam and say, you know what, I've heard him, you have to sit here, don't leave, you will be missing something. So that's the way it goes. And the general tendency, yes, I mean, like until Corona, you had this effect of this 8 p.m. syndrome. Like whoever sings, even if there's a Naradar with Tambura singing, like 8 p.m. there will be like about 15-20 people who will leave the hall. So, and unfortunately that coincides with Taniyavartanam. Or people will know that, okay, what, in another 5 minutes there is going to be Taniyavartanam, therefore it's a good time to leave. And that is something which has to be discouraged. And in fact, I am thinking of, announcing in concerts before I start the, main piece, saying that, what, there's going to be a Taniyavartanam. Please don't show disrespect by walking out during the Taniyavartanam. If you want to walk out now. I think that's something from the vocalist side that I can probably do, and I would probably suggest other vocalists to do too. So this is the general temperament. So this is an answer strictly based on temperament, and this has nothing to do with Mani Iyer's view. This is, since you asked a question, I'm just trying to logically break this down. Namaskar, could you please give me an insight of Sri Palghat Mani's approach to sadhana in the journey of becoming a good concert performer when it comes to Mridangam? Did it involve more of mental improvement finger on an equal. Okay, it's a very interesting question. So during one of his interviews, a famous interview, somebody has asked. I used to draw a parallel to this when Roger Federer was asked after he won the Australian Open in 2018, or the recent one, 2018 one or 19 one. So somebody asked Roger Federer right after the right after the game when he won the title. So practice just the same as any other top player? His answer was, no, this is pure talent. I don't practice. And he laughed. And he said, like, you know what? I don't sit in the couch eating potato chips if I have to compete at this level. The same way, when somebody asked in an interview to Mani Tata, and she asked, do you practice pannirkela? His answer was like, he gave a pause and he said, nariya practice pannirken. So it's not like, I mean, you have like these three examples. Like I've seen, everyone knows that Sri Balamurali Krishna Garu, I mean, I don't think anyone has, I don't know of anyone who has seen him practice or anyone who has heard of someone who has seen him practice. I don't know. I mean, this is a good time. Probably some of you viewers know of that. Please let me know. I haven't heard. And I have met him several times and I don't know what his take on practice is. But as far as Mani Tata is concerned, he strongly believed in practice. And he said that, in fact, he used to emphasize on this, I forget the name, Padakai. This tat tarita katari, dit tarita katari, tom tarita katari, nam tarita katari, tat tarita rikita taka, dit tarita rikita taka, tom tarita. So he used to emphasize on these basics. Even Appa has told me several times, and of course Rajaram has also told me, before important concerts, nobody has ever heard him practice anything complicated. Even the most important of concerts, I mean the most perceived importance, I mean we only differentiate between concerts after concerts. For them, every concert is a concert. But what we perceive as like a very, very significant concert, Appa, Pripa, everyone used to say that he used to just practice his topi routines and just try to see whether the gumiki is fine, whether the valantala is in tune, whether the chap is okay, whether the basic solos are okay. He used to just practice the basic solos again and again and again and again, and nothing complicated. So he used to emphasize so much on basics. As far as mental improvement, I mean, he was of the strongest view that 60 to 70% of the learning or the practice should be mental. He used to say that like the amount of time that you spend thinking about music, be it vocal, violin or mridangam, that gives you the polish, that gives you the finesse, that gives you that flow in music. Practice, yeah, you need, see, this happens over time, right? So initially the bulk of it is practice and very little of it is thinking about it, because it's going to be like a motory exercise until you hit the threshold. So beyond a point, it is not about your motor memory or a muscle memory, because I mean you have done it so many times that it exists. Now it's a question of how you enhance that and take it to the next level by constantly thinking about it and how to improve it. So it depends on which stage you are in. Early stages, it has to be like populated with your motor memory, which means you physically practice, be it voice training or be it violin or be it mridangam. And he was of the strongest view that beyond a point, it's all going to be about your thought process, how much you think, how deep you think, and how often you think. He says that more you think about it, it's going to be. How does a non-mridangam student of music acquaint themselves with decoding the Taniyavartanam? Okay, it's not like a mystery thing to decode. It's not like a mystery novel that you're reading, or it's not like a puzzle that you're trying to solve. It is just an art form. Now this gets to the open-mindedness. I'm not too sure if this is the same person who asked me about the open-mindedness. If you're open enough to understand, okay, something is presented to me, am I able to enjoy it without being judgmental? As simple as that. Let's say I take this person whoever has asked this question. Okay, so if I just put this person, let's say in an art show, in a gallery, is this person going to ask me like, oh, you know what, I don't know what kind of oil paint he used, I don't know what kind of brush he used, therefore I cannot enjoy this piece of painting. What is the point? It's an art form. This is like a visual art form. This is like an auditory art form, right? As long as you're like, it doesn't require any knowledge. I mean, like, this is an art form. This is not science. And that is the biggest mistake that's happening, in my opinion, among Rasikas. You try to just decode seeing this lot of live shows which says that, the landing note inna konja neenga seri pannunga. The judges say a few things and you just catch up on that and you just start, don't try to scientifically break this down. This can give you an intellectual high. That's great. By all means, just take it. But at the end of it, this is art. So it's a question of how it appeals to you more than intellectually. In your heart, are you able to take away something? And does it like actually affect you in a very positive way? And are you able to feel something? Is what is more important than trying to understand whether this is janya of that, whether this is mela karta. Who cares? That's our job. It's the job of me to figure out what Rishabham I have to use, what Rishabham I cannot use, what I can use, whether the Devadam comes in this ragam. That's not for you. You are not practicing this art. For your knowledge, great. But more you get knowledgeable, you are going to get more critical and you are not going to enjoy. This art form needs artists as well as Rasikas like you. And Rasikas like you, if you start acting like artists, then where is the space for us to perform happily, right? You are going to be critical of everything. Like, I mean, I cannot enjoy a concert as much as any of the laymen can enjoy. That's like a curse to me. Why do you want to be cursed? So just happily take it the way it is, right? You can do all this kind of online commentary, like the way you said, no, Dravid should have just, just taken this grip off of this and just gone forward. Yeah, from here it's very easy to say that. Just go stand and face someone like Shoaib Akhtar, then you would know. It's the same as that, right? So something that comes to you like 160, 170 kilometers, and you are just telling how the person has to hold the bat. So that's the way it is. So just don't get, this is a humble appeal from me, just don't get into the technicalities, like what are you going to achieve? Like, you're going to get more critical. If that gives you a high, by all means, just get into it. You always have this Google teacher who says what Carnatic music is all about. I'm extremely critical of acquiring knowledge through Google and just say that, I know Carnatic music because Google says this. So if you say that you know Carnatic music, it actually has to mean that you just learn from someone who has practiced it enough and who has shed his or her blood and sweat for several years together and faced a lot of failures, a lot of embarrassments, and then they teach you something. So this is a question of experience versus knowledge. Let's not get into this knowledge part and digress ourselves. Okay, so this is going to be the last question on Sebastian and Sons. So let me just read the question clearly. This is not a technical question. How factual was the book Sebastian and Sons? Any part which appealed to you? Great. Yeah, I'll just take some time to explain about this because I've received several questions on this, both offline and online. So I'll probably take like 5 or 10 minutes to explain on this. So I would just think of this book and segregate it into 2 parts. One is the middle chapters, like chapters, I think 4, 5 and 6 or 3, 4, 5 and 6, which starts describing about the choosing of the wood, and then it goes to the skin, and then it goes to the war and everything. Those chapters are brilliant, and I would strongly encourage not only Mridangist but any musician to definitely read those chapters, because that gives you an insight of what actually happens. And in my opinion, that is pure brilliance. I haven't read anything better than that. Anything which is factual, which is presented so pellucidly by anyone. I think that's, in my opinion, that is one of the greatest parts of any reading in my life. And I would strongly encourage, and for someone who is coming from Mani Iyer's family, I learned quite a bit. It's not that I didn't know. Day in and day out, I have been exposed to these kinds of terms and these kinds of terminologies, the methods of how a wood is chosen, how a skin is chosen. But still, I had so much to learn on those 4 chapters. That's pure brilliance. And once again, I strongly recommend everyone who is getting a peep into music to definitely read those chapters and I think it definitely deserves that award specifically for those chapters. The other chapters are narratives, right? I don't think anyone who is academically inclined or trained would accept what is being said, not because it exists or the phenomenon of caste or creed exists or does not exist, merely because I'm not too sure what kind of scientific methods went into this kind of eliciting responses. So I'm talking about the rest of the chapters. I'm not talking about the middle 4 chapters, the 3 or 4 chapters, which I said is the greatest piece of art, in my opinion. Other chapters, I don't think any economist or social scientist or a political economist or a statistician, or as I said, any academician would consider the results very seriously, because it has been a conversation with people, and I can converse with someone. I can converse with the same set of people and elicit different kinds of answers. So this is what we call of course, I have worked with a lot of multilaterals and bilaterals, and the most difficult part ever in any kind of an interview based or a survey based thing is to come up with a tool or an instrument for survey, especially when it is sensitive, such as gender, caste, religion. These are extremely sensitive questions. These are extremely sensitive topics. The question is, I can ask the same question, everything else remaining the same, I can get one answer. You may ask the same question, the way it is worded exactly the same, in a different time, you will get different answers. So this is the curse of unstructured interviews. So this is what is called unstructured interviews. I just talk to people and try to get their information. There is no questionnaire. It's not bounded. It's not like a binary variable. It is not like a categorical variable. I just talk to you and figure out what you feel about it. So the same person, it is fraught with what is called the interviewer's skewness or interviewer bias. So I can ask the same question I'm just going to give you an example. How was the concert yesterday? How was the concert yesterday? So it's the same question. How was the concert yesterday? You think the way both the questions were asked is going to give you the same results? Probably not. And science says that mostly it is not. So you let it be the same person, let it be the author who has asked the same set of questions, let him or her ask at a different point in time. It's going to give you a different answer. This is not to say the phenomenon that the author is trying to explain here does not exist or does exist. Maybe it exists. But the way in which the survey was carried out and the elicitation of responses were carried out is not scientific enough. Because if it was scientific enough, knowing the author, probably the book would have got another award just for the methods that was employed. So that's the kind of, for those fans of that author, I'm just complimenting this. So that's the kind of how articulate and great communicator he is. The point is, so I wouldn't take those results seriously. There is nothing that I can take about the inferences of the author from the book outside of those 4 chapters, which was like factually describing how a Mridangam is made. And so coming back to it, when you think about the inferences from the book outside of those 4 chapters, they are topics probably to be explored by social scientists. Maybe artists may be better spending of their time singing or practicing or whatever they are doing. But people who care about these kinds of social issues, obviously they have to discuss those. But from what this book says, I would be inclined to have this as like a coffee table conversation or doing a stroll in the park. Absolutely great for conversation. But if I were to take it seriously enough for like a policy study or for making it like academically valid, I would just reject it as an economist. Again, this is not to say that such phenomenon doesn't exist, but the methods employed were not scientific. It's just very casual. So I think people who go gaga about, what this existed, that existed, just take a step back and see that how things have happened and see what social scientists and economists or statisticians say about how things have to be, gathered, what it takes to elicit information. Because honestly speaking, even in the US, there are only 4 or 5 universities which offer a terminal degree in survey design, and 2 of them are tied up. So which means basically you have like 3 or 4 universities in the US which is known to be like known for research and such things. Only those number of universities offer a terminal degree in this, which means it's an extremely niche thing. I mean, just because I have like an undergrad or a master's in economics, I just cannot go, with a paper and a pen or a recorder and just ask some person about what he or she feels and then, say that I can write a book and say that this is what is a phenomenon that exists out of the world. That's not the way it happens. So yeah, the middle 4 chapters, great. It is a must read in my opinion. The rest of it is like, it's not scientific. Great for a coffee table conversation, and that's nothing more than that. Any part which appealed to you? Well, I'm not being sarcastic here, but it just took me some time to shake off when I read this part, where the author mentions about the dream of a person who died 10 or 12 years prior to the year in which the author was born. So the author was able to articulate it so well that it sounded actually factual, and as if that person came and spoke with the author about what his dreams were. So that's how beautifully the author articulated what the dreams of certain people were who died several decades back, or at least like 5 to 10 years back. It's definitely a compliment, because even for someone like me who has been like growing up with music altogether, and 5 generations have been in music field. Like my grandfather's grandfather was a musician, so it just goes on like that. And even to me, it took like several reads to figure out, how beautifully articulated. And there is no way in which the author could have interacted with this person who was dead like 10 or 12 years before even he was born. So that was very powerful, and it was extremely confident of the author to say as if it was factual, getting into people's mind and reading people's mind and talking about their dreams and what they achieved and what they did not achieve. And for all what I know, there were several people who had directly interacted with the person whom the author was talking about, and they used to say that he was a very reserved person who never used to share anything, least of all his dreams. So again, I'm not being sarcastic, but I'm really awestruck by the way the author has been so impressive in his communication. And it is extremely impossible for people on the periphery to understand what is factual and what is narrative, except for those 3 or 4 chapters. So the communication skills is amazing, and that appeals to me the most. And I've read it several times. So that's my take. Any other question? Yeah, I think we have come to the end of this program, and let's say. Yeah, you are talking about the instrument maker to be glorified. I'm not sure. Yeah, it happens everywhere. The book doesn't give reference to the primary teacher who taught the author what English was. So does it mean that, that person doesn't deserve any credit? Or does any of his, does any of the author's teachers who taught him what logic was, primary teacher or whoever it is, because of whom the author is even able to communicate in English, was that person referred to and was he or she acknowledged? The answer is no. So yeah, it happens. It happens everywhere. That's my take. All right. So let's come to the draw of this conversation. Thank you so much once again, Ranjani Trust, for giving me this opportunity. It's a blessing for any artist to talk about past doyens. And again, this is not because Palghat Mani Iyer is my grandfather. Any doyen, if I had to talk, I'm not even qualified. I don't have that, they say, arigadai. I don't have that to even talk about these greats. I'm just trying to be reminiscent, and I'm just trying to bring about what all I had in mind, what my appa and my peripa have told me about Mani Tata. And in the general interest of people to know, students, Rasikas to know what his views were, and Ranjani Memorial Trust giving me this opportunity to convey this, and I'm extremely happy and grateful to the trust. And thank you so much, Rasikas, for watching this. And I'm happy to take questions, and I think I answered most of the questions that you asked. I think I answered everything. If you have more questions, shoot it out here or in my page. I'll be happy to respond whenever I find the time. Thank you so much. Once again, namaskaras.